Welcome to Constructed Futures. I'm Hugh Seaton. Today I'm here with Jeff Sample, Iron Man of IT, tech guy extraordinaire, currently working with Bluebeam, but also just man about town. Both of us have gone through a number of conferences this year, and I thought this would be a really good time to recap some of what we've seen and some of what it means. So, Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Hugh. Yeah, I appreciate the introduction. It has been a whirlwind. Good to see you a bunch in a bunch of different cities. Not sure
That's right.
exactly which cities or which places or what we were doing in some cases, but I thought it was a good time too to sit down because we see so much this time of year. This is conference season, as we call it, and it's good to get some of these fresh thoughts out and into a medium like this where we can digest it later. Because I think come hopefully later in November and December, we all have time to think about what we've learned and maybe look to 2026 to apply it. So I thought it was a great time. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's start with Bluebeam. Both of us met in DC. Bluebeam had a lot to say. It was pretty cool to see the CEO, Usman, talk, but also the CEO of Nemetschek and the doctor himself. And I was struck by how it was a one topic speech. Yes, they talked about the platform. Of course they did. And there's some pretty amazing things that are coming. But really, it was a lot of AI. It was a declaration, it seemed to me, to say, we've been doing some things, but we're going to talk to you about where we're pointing the organization. As someone who's in there way more than I am, what did you see?
Yeah, that was the beauty of it. And it's one of the reasons I came over. You said this earlier, truth and transparency. I work for Bluebeam now as an industry development manager. I focus on trades. My eyes are across everything, and I do get to work with Nemetschek as well. And I think what you saw was the same thing you're seeing when, that event used to be called XCon and now it's called Unbound. And in the future, it will be called Unbound as long as we're in this next generation of change. So it was the two things coming together. It was showing that the company has changed. And I think you're going to find now that the product itself has changed from more of what it was classically seen as collaboration, design management, plan management, communication to more of an ecosystem partner. And a lot of the time that the company's been quiet has been in re-architecting and preparing. If y'all knew what was going on in the background, it's just a little tip of the cap to everybody that not only made the event work, but made the product changes ready to go was amazing. And I'm with you. Our Usman, our CEO, is very focused on not just flashy AI, but AI implemented in such a way that solves business problems and can really help now. There's going to be a lot of things you can do in the future, and there's a lot of hype out there. But I think our first foray into it is we're going to deliver on the particular things that we know are hard in the product itself that AI can really help with and give you those superhuman powers you've been looking for. So
This is
excited.
one
That's what you got.
this is one of the cool things about where we're starting to be. Because on the one hand, everybody's LinkedIn feed, certainly mine, is loaded with big proclamations and this thing is happening and someone's raising $1 trillion. I can't believe we use trillions so often. But then you get to companies that are actually building things that people are going to use. And that's where the rubber obviously meets the road. And there's a balance between what someone's going to do in the short run. Is someone really going to want to trust an end-to-end agent at this point versus say, you know what, I know Bluebeam really well. There's a lot of things that I know how to do. And you know what, it'd be great if you could start making some of those things faster or easier or prepare me so that when I'm thinking about something, I can quickly get what I want so that I can do the main work. And that, for me, there's a little bit of a distinction between what the main work is, which is where you're applying your judgment and intuition and the reason why you're paid what you're paid, versus the little things that allow you to do your job better. And a lot of what I saw at Bluebeam was under that second category, is things that can help you do what you already do faster, better, with better information, a little less anxiety about, am I right about that fact or about where that thing is, and so on. So you hear about, my least favorite term is human in the loop, because it tends to be almost a dismissal. Yeah, we'll keep human in the loop. What does that even mean? And we're
Yeah,
starting
right.
to see we're starting to see that human is the loop and AI is actually helping you with it, as opposed to this vision of replacing too much. And I'm going to stump from one of my big points here, is that people add value in the work, not at the end of the work. And I saw that a lot everywhere really, but I saw that at Bluebeam as well because you're celebrating the fact that people are really good at what they do. Let's make them better, not let's
Yeah.
take them out of it.
Totally. Focused AI is the key to it, right? It's focused. What can you do at scale using the tools themselves, how they're built in the background to do something better? Like simple things. We added a magic wand markup tool, right? Doesn't sound really cool to many people, but now, these tedious tasks of changing and converting and duplicating and offsetting your markups and moving things around, super easy now. Right. And that was something the human did. And we could just understand how it was done and make it available in a much easier, much faster way. So you're still doing all the things you were doing with your markup. You're just doing it faster. I love it. Stitching, right? This is where if you're working on horizontal projects and you're working in chunks, and no, it doesn't just automatically take all the ones you have out there and do it now. That's not what we're offering up. We're offering up that if you understand ahead that you have this, then we can help you work in those sheets and stitch them back together to create your one big roadway, which, by the way, at the event, I heard from someone who said, you just saved me a week and a half of my life of doing that on every project that I work on. Thank you.
There's a really good point in there where right now, that's where I think a lot of people are hunting and should be hunting. Those little things that like burn up a day or a week, right? Like it takes me so long to do this little thing so I can start thinking, right? Let's get straight to the thinking. Maybe you still need a cup of coffee to get your head straight, but that's different. You're not sitting there. I love the stitching is such a good, there's a lot of stitching, whether it's literally stitching or things that are just like that, where it's finding all that stuff, finding every inspection isn't really a Bluebeam thing, but you get my point. And having that all in one place so you can start to think globally about the project or then drill down where you need to be.
Yeah. And then opening up, I think if we're going to say we're an ecosystem, we've got to open ourselves up to partnerships and other things. We've heard for years, oh, everything's going BIM, everything's going BIM. And of course, we have some of our own 3D tools, et cetera. But honestly, a lot of it is still in 2D. And so in this round, we're talking about connecting sessions to Revit. So being able to work in the right product at the right time, but also understanding that other products exist and we have to move the data, that's key. And announce some really fun interoperability. I want to change it from integrations to interoperability over time because we're working more with Procore. We're working more with OneDrive and SharePoint, some of those natural things that I think in the past we didn't do as well with, and obviously didn't have it. And it connects us to why we'll talk about Groundbreak while we're here, but it's powerful to be able to, and I've been saying this for a long time and it's where it lines up. It's right person, right place, right time. And that means it's the right person in the right tool, the tool that they're used to. So like the DocuSign integration piece, right? Like you're in Bluebeam, you want to access, you have to have DocuSign and all those things, but why do you have to leave and round trip and download things out of Procore or download and change and upload? And that's just stuff, like you said, Hugh, earlier, that's not human in the loop. That's just annoying. Let's just fix that and make it easier. You're saving a couple of minutes here and there. And also, by the way, not uploading the wrong thing. How many times has anybody Rev 37.2.5?
Right.
Oops, I did 2.2 instead of 2.5. These are the things that I think are really important for us to understand that those are the things that are going to drive the change in 26 in my mind. I think we both agree in 27 there might be other things, but 26 it's these types of things.
I agree. And I really want to hone in a little bit on this distinction between integrations and interoperability, because that speaks to the AI thing again, right? Now you're not asking for a chunk of data to come over. You're actually saying we're going to be doing some work with that platform. And it's going to be multi-stage and multi-step. So I'm not just saying, hey, let's go grab some things and pull them in here and we'll use them in Bluebeam or whatever your platform is. Now you're saying we're going to be doing multi-step things. And that really opens up the ability for some agents that are useful look, I don't want to poo-poo where agents may or may not go, but right now where I think they add real value is in pretty narrow channels of work. Like they help it because you've really given them guardrails and you made the problem small enough to trust the agent. And that's where I think you'll see things where it's passing data back and forth for you, or it's pulling something, maybe summarizing it and integrating it and so on. So this interoperability versus integration is a really cool mind shift.
And it is really key because we need interoperability. To me, that means getting outside of your own environments and into other environments and really working together, just like you said. But I I want to double down on you saying that agents needing narrow channels. I think too much of what I hear in the world are these lofty goals of all the things it can do. And sure, in some cases it can do certain things, but it's just not very highly successful at it. And you've got to almost be too advanced of an organization where you're past that anyway, that you want to keep them narrow channels. And I'll go to the people who are building AI behind their platforms. They're having to talk about it, but ultimately that's what they're doing, right? They're creating those channels. They're creating those deep walled channels to do particular things and get the outcomes consistent. And so that's where the agents to me are key. I don't love we're going to go do everything with agents and you're just going to sit back and push buttons. I don't think so.
And make a decision at the end. The idea that
Yeah.
human in the loop means a decision at the end. Look, there's sometimes that might make sense, like drafting an email, but we don't want to have agents automating too much because humans add a lot of value. Professionals, and I said this before, but I'm probably going to say it a lot. The human in the work sees things that allow them to make decisions and add judgments and tweak things and make it fit the job in a way that you don't want overly automated. So I think that it's almost the philosophy of AI. Like, what do we want this thing for? And what we want this thing for is to make the human better at their jobs, not take them out of it. And that's not just a technology thing. That's not me saying AI is good, bad, or indifferent. It's even if it were amazing, even if it were at the high end of what we think it could someday be, do we want it to be pulling humans all the way out of the work? And my strong sense of this is my strong contention is that no, we don't. That we want them to be partners. Again, they're not really ready to be partners yet, but not someone who's replacing, what a human can do, because there's no architecture right now. Like, nobody's building AI. No one knows how to build AI that can do what a human can do when it comes to the judgment and application of experience. And I always say this, what percent of a job is on the phone or face to face? And 90 something percent of communication is nonverbal, depending on what the communication is. But lots gets communicated that isn't something you could write down, whether it's someone's confidence in something or that moment where they realize something in the middle, that like flash of insight. And these happen more often than we sometimes think. Sometimes you're rolling with it and you realize something and you move forward. That's the job. That's what makes buildings actually work, because there's just so many variables.
I would go with you there too. I would agree with you. And I would also be remiss if I didn't talk quick about part of what we're showing here. And you've heard this over and over, is bigger companies buying companies. It's no secret. We bought GoCanvas a while back. And now, how does that intelligently become something? We released TaskLink. So now you're going to be able to release forms to the field through your projects themselves, through your plans themselves, and ask for things in the field, right? If we don't connect field to fab to office in some respects, our shops, because a lot of them are going to be shops, if we don't think about the chain and connect people together in ways that you can get that information really quickly, we're not doing anybody justice. You saw the coming together of where we think GoCanvas and Bluebeam can really shine, and then mobile enhancements to the product itself. So yes, to those out there, we are really focused on the mobile. And then Firmus. We acquired Firmus right before the event, announced it. And I really think as you see us integrate and work more seamlessly with Firmus, you're going to realize that was I will call it a no-brainer. There's a lot of brains in Firmus, but it was a no-brainer to bring the two companies together. So excited, man. And that was Unbound. And we did announce our big Procore integration, which got a lot of ears. And that took me on. So we moved on together to Houston.
Yeah, you're making a joke that I actually had the honor of being on talking about some of what we've been doing with this AI in construction course. And one of the team called it Houston, like my name, which I thought was hysterical. So shout out to Elise. That was fun. I'll tell you what, it was a really big show. It was really impressive how much Procore has rolled out. I think the breadth of what their roadmap has, the breadth of what they've done already. They've already had a number of like hackathons. And I think if there's ever a moment when a hackathon is a cool idea, and I encourage folks to think about even doing this at a contractor level as well, is agents, because the point of an agent or an AI project is it should be natural language text, not technology. So suddenly the problem with hackathons in construction has always been, can we find someone to actually write some code? That's been removed. And again, the value of doing a hackathon is it surfaces sometimes what people wish they could make better. Certainly at the end of it, and maybe in the beginning they go and say, hey, help me write an RFI. But later on, people start to get closer to those little blockers, those little things they wish that something could help them with. And Procore talked about doing that with some of their customers and so on, which I think, again, is a really smart idea.
Yeah, I love the way they started that out. They call their platform Helix, and I'm with you. That is it's an incredible show. It was more people than they've ever had before. You could feel it. By the way, big shout to Houston and the choice of the convention center and where they did it all. Smooth, a lot of fun. You got to have a lot of walking while you're there, but it wasn't too much. Kudos to the team and the venue itself for housing us and having us and really having a great event. But I'm with you that they highlighted Mortensen Construction and good friend Allison Hart, Allison, hello, and her team doing a hackathon and really looking and digging into particular problems and how could Procore's Helix and Agent Builder and the other things they've released help them solve some critical problems, save some time. And I'm just going to guess that Procore, if they're smart, which they are, is in the background learning from it.
Yeah.
They're learning the flows of information. They're learning the bottlenecks and problems. Like you said, I'm not ready to have an agent come to the meeting with me and talk, but I would really love the agent to run and get me something that I forgot digitally for the meeting and bring it back to me right there so I can reference the latest change or the latest update in an RFI or the latest revision of a plan set, whatever it might be. Go get it so I can stay focused on what I'm doing, and then we can work together on this piece. So there's a ton that can be done and that they're releasing. And man, their partner program in that room, it is full.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you notice the number of ERP systems that were there this year? That was a highlight to me.
Interesting. No, I didn't. I was, not surprisingly, a little more focused on folks that are doing things that are AI related. But to your point, it was a big room full of startups and integrations that will become interoperations.
Yeah.
To our point. And just a lot of excitement. Like the number of people that were at different booths talking about it was also remarkable, and all the way through. A lot of times day one, everybody's there talking, but day two was pretty crowded as well.
Yeah.
And obviously they had so much going on in terms of talking about this and talking about that. But yeah.
You highlighted something too that we didn't even highlight about Unbound, but I think it links us to Procore in this respect is you saw all the Bluebeam user group people.
Yeah.
All these, we call it's the bugs, and they are the fanatics of the program itself. And at Procore, you see that same group. I don't know that they have a name for them. They call themselves Procorians, and you can see the vibrant, wonderful people that work there that you get to connect with. But also, it is a who's who in that room of intelligent, thoughtful, smart, but also gritty people who get stuff done. I love the people aspect of interacting at both events and really seeing these are the people that are invested in changing the industry and getting us to that hopefully tipping point of digitizing and being not just integrated, but interoperability and having the operation and the ability to move data and information so we can get jobs built. I think that's also the thing that neither event and specifically Procore focusing on. It's all about getting work installed.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what we do as an industry.
And that kind of brings me to a point that Groundbreak specifically made me think of, and that is we're really early in this AI wave, for lack of a better word, right? And there's a lot that people could adopt. And I think that it can be overwhelming when you see all of what is possible. Procore is so big that it's overwhelming anyway, which is why they've got so many resources to train and so on. But I think that it's important for people not to get overwhelmed with all of these new features and things, and actually say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a thing that I'll start with. And the fact that all of them have their own chatbot, they call it Assist, they call it different things. But at the end of the day, it's a natural language way to go find information. I think for folks that don't really want to get too into AI yet, that's an obvious win. Let's maybe worry about agents a little bit later if you're not ready for it. But definitely start playing around with the chatbot. Again, everyone's got a different word for it, but usually the word assist or assistant is in there somewhere because that's exactly what it's supposed to be doing for you. I
And that's
think
what
that's
Procore's
that.
doing, right? They're giving you these walled gardens, these areas to try things out in a way that's not as dangerous as if you were trying to go out and get commercial products and trying to build some of your own things where you could really do some disastrous things. I am going to guess, I didn't get to see it, but I'm going to guess that there are a lot of controls in there. And I know they are actually because I was sitting talking to the team and they were talking about the inherent security that's inherited from your Procore profile. So you're
Yeah.
not going to be giving an agent something that you shouldn't be able to give them to do, to go delete a bunch of things or do a bunch of damage. So you're inherently getting the security you need, which should give you some comfort to work around with it. And not for nothing, we also should say it was a great time for me to see Tooey in person
Yeah.
as the last time as the CEO of Procore at a Groundbreak. It was great I got to interview him, so you'll see some stuff coming out for me there. But just great to get to see his last one and to wish him well. He really is a great leader there and has been a wonderful partner in the process. So excited, and then bringing in new leadership. It's time for the next wave of Procore to hit the next wave.
And this is really normal, right? In fact,
Mhm.
it's remarkable that Tooey's been able to steward the organization through as many phases as he has. You ask a VC, for example, and when you hit Series B, they often want a CEO at that point. And I think they got to Series Z. I'm joking. They went all the way through IPO and successful public company for a number of years. And it just makes sense that you say, okay, I built this incredible ecosystem. Let's get someone in who lives in that world and has been a B2B software guy his whole career. And now we'll look at the organization and as it stands now, not as it's grown. And even,
Yeah.
Michael Dell did this. It's a long time ago, so not everyone will remember this, but for the founder CEO to bring in someone who's the classic professional manager, and it's not to imply that Tooey wasn't, but my point is it's someone who thinks like that and it's not his baby. It's actually, he's dispassionately looking at what needs to get done. It's the right thing to do. And obviously that's why they're doing it.
Yeah, and it's a perfect time for him to do it. And I think one of the cool things that Tooey did over that time was he surrounded himself with really intelligent people in
Yeah.
each key area to help him make the transformation until the point where he realized it was time for, I think for multiple reasons, maybe not the least of which is like maybe getting some time back in his life. He's been doing this grind for a long time, but also that you're right. He's got all those things there. And now him being able to step out and continue to represent the organization. He's not leaving. He's going up onto the, I
Executive
believe,
chair now, right?
yeah, executive chair, still being that stalwart leader, but then allowing someone like Ajay to come in and do the things that it takes to change and grow. It's coming, and that's what they need. And I'm excited to see it and excited to sit back down with you next year and figure out how it went, and I'll look back in the year and see how we did. Hopefully see you on the road somewhere soon.
Well, I'm going to shift gears to where I was this week. So it is exactly conference season. Again, full transparency, I do some work with Kahua, and they had their enabling innovations this week. And it's incredible how different the three companies are in what they do and what their focus is. So Kahua is originally more owner focused. Security is a big part of what they do. So they've got FedRAMP. They've had FedRAMP certification for a while. They're CMMC ready and all that. So that's a lot of how they go to market. And the difference in approach is interesting because where a lot of other folks are talking about the products, of course, so did Kahua. But because of the way they built their business and who they work with, the degree to which implementation is a big part of their go-to-market is really stark. So they had like awards for implementation partners, and these are usually consultants and all that. And it's a really interesting view because AI, I think, is going to require more of that than SaaS did. Now, obviously, the Procores and everybody's still SaaS with kind of this agentic AI layer, but that's going to require a lot of configuration, a lot of thinking about where this should fit in a process. Because when you get a tool like a Procore, it's laying on top of your process as it is. And maybe you tweak some of what you do, but basically it's meant to fit the way construction works. So there isn't an enormous amount of implementation. There's always, of course, there's always change management. Don't get me wrong. But as we start thinking about agents, even in the level you and I just talked about, you start to think about your process differently. And I think that where I saw Kahua doing something pretty cool is saying, as we're doing these things in the same secure environment, there's these really long tenured implementation partners. They don't have a marketplace, so partners to them means something different. They do have something like a marketplace, but it's not the same place in their strategy as clearly Procore's is. So seeing how these different companies go to market is really interesting. And again, as we make this change through 2026 and beyond, having implementation partners, I think, is going to be critical.
Oh yeah.
Usually that means a consultant, which isn't always what contractors want. But the reality is you can learn slowly on your own, or you can learn a lot more quickly by bringing in someone who's seen it done elsewhere, can bring some lessons and can bring some benchmarks, and more importantly, has the time.
Yeah, it's really, implementation is really important in the process, and it gets overlooked way too often. And I always laugh because it's, oh, we don't want to bring in consultants. Wait, if you're a general contractor, you actually contract out a lot of the work that gets done. You're already using consultants. You go to certain mechanicals and plumbers and electricians to get their expertise. You're already used to this. Do the same thing and leverage that expertise and put it to work towards the goal that you want. And I can't talk much about Kahua. So AJ, Nick, I guess my invite got lost in the mail. Maybe next year. Like you guys out there. Now, I love the team at Kahua. I love what they're doing. See them a lot on the road. And it's also a nod to the groups that they serve and the way that they have to serve them. And I think that's really key to each of the platforms or ecosystem partners and companies is, who do you serve and how? And that's why you see those differences. And then a golden thread of making sure the products are being adopted and used to efficiently get better job outcomes, get better projects. That's what we're here for.
And here we are towards the end of 2025, not quite done with conference season, but pretty close. It's an amazing moment because I think you look at past changes and past technology waves, you often are realizing later that just happened, or you were so in the work. But right now, this one is so loud and there's hype, but there's also real work being done. So it's a pretty crazy time to be in the middle of it. The other thing is, I think we're benefiting as an industry from the fact that there was SaaS and then there was mobile, and there, along the way, there've been some other things. There was virtual reality for a little while that kind of came and went. But I think the ability of the industry to adjust, adapt, and adopt technology is way better than it was, both in terms of the people that have been hired, but also everybody's experience with it. People have seen, this made my life better. They've also seen, I know what doesn't make my life better. And I think understanding when to say no makes you much better at saying yes, because you're more confident in what you know works, as opposed to generally thinking there's promise here, but I don't know what it is. Being able to say, look, I know where we need help, and I know how to adopt. I know how to say no to technology, so I know how to say yes to technology.
That's a key point, man. I think you dropped the mic there because we've gone through all those changes, and this is one of the biggest. But if we apply those fundamentals of know what you need and really apply what you're looking for to the problems, you're going to get somewhere. And I honestly think we're on a path to some really big changes, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, it will. Jeff, thank you for being on the podcast. Always awesome to talk to you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.